Greetings, YouTube friends. Today, I'm excited to welcome Jordan, the creator of Waters Above crypto community. Jordan's work brings together gematria, astrology, technical analysis, and market cycles. He also focuses on symbolic pattern recognition, and he forecasts Bitcoin, altcoins, and financial markets. This conversation is especially timely. The Clarity Act is moving through Congress. Stablecoins and tokenization are becoming part of the financial architecture, and Bitcoin may be in a bottoming process. This is my first conversation with Jordan, and I'm looking forward to learning about his forecasting methods and his overall outlook on Bitcoin, stablecoins, and more. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, this is very exciting. So I would love, just to kick things off, to know a little bit about your history, how you got into trading, and what your process was for beginning to weave together all of the esoteric practices with the financial markets.
Yeah, so I think like my interest in the occult and the esoteric has gone back probably at least a decade plus, and the actual utility of it in markets aligns similarly to you, where it was like around 2020 into 2021 where I really started applying it and like creating my own system. But what got me into investing actually had a lot to do with studying the Federal Reserve System and just trying to wrap my brain around like what happens with all this money that I earn, all the hard-earned money that I get. And obviously there's a element of learning about taxation and what's going on with that, but just generally I was really fascinated with how for every dollar, there's this essentially infinite amount of money that's borrowed on top of that. And that's not good, right? So I got into it for the concept of preserving wealth. I wasn't actually trying to get rich. And I think that was a really healthy starting point now that I look back at it, because obviously, maybe you know this as well. In your position, a lot of people would maybe come to you because they want to learn how to make a lot of money. And my start wasn't like that. I was actually already successful doing e-commerce, and I had past businesses that were doing successful as well. I was kind of helping people with health and wellness coaching and a lot of mindset coaching stuff, which that actually ended up being my angle. Furthermore, a lot more than just applying the esoteric outlook to the markets. Um, so yeah, that's been kind of like my waters above starting point, I suppose. Yeah,
That's
2020-ish.
awesome. That's amazing. I also have a diverse history. I came to markets in 2017, and prior to that, I've really just been an entrepreneur. And I mean, even still to this day, that's what I do. I started a couple cannabis companies in the state of Oregon, and I also was in natural health and working with people with natural health coaching and consulting as well. So that's interesting that we
Yeah, that's
share.
awesome.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's awesome. So should we jump in and take a look at the markets first and kind of synthesize what we're both looking at, maybe in the crypto market specifically, since that seems to be a real focus. And you can tell me what you're looking at, and we'll just see where it evolves.
Sure. Yeah. Can you let me know if you could see my screen right now?
Yep, I can.
Great. Yeah, so I think a big theme to my work specifically is the inclusion of what I call my eclipse cycle theory. And I guess it's theoretical, even though it's been playing out every single time. So I could quickly share that with your people and we could go from there.
Yeah,
It's kind of like
absolutely.
the big picture
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
So effectively what we're looking on the screen is a bunch of boxes, and I made it nice and simple by having red for what we call lunar cycles and green for what we could call solar cycles. And they're all numbered out and sequenced. And by the way, I try to avoid or if always avoid partial or penumbral or not total eclipses or not annular solar eclipses, for example. So this is basically just like what we would call true full eclipses are being marked out here. And what we've learned is that Bitcoin has a relationship with the lunar cycle where it's effectively in what we call a bear market, right? And then during our solar cycles, it's in a bull run. And going back to pretty much the genesis of Bitcoin, this has been cyclical. And I've launched my channel somewhere over here, and I started talking about it somewhere over here in the 2021 cycle. So my channel is now like about 5 years old, and that means we've been tracking this for a half a decade. So there's a lot of time that I've been refining this, getting better and better at understanding it, and throwing in additional layers so that we can go even more micro, right? With regards to things like Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde, and even the monthly moon phase cycle. So the just typical full moons and new moons and all of those elements. So, but this is like the big picture where we can zoom out and understand specifically with Bitcoin why it has these drawdowns and then the ability to determine to like time out the pivots. So
Mhm.
I could effectively figure out when the bottoms are, and I could determine with a pretty high accuracy when the peaks will be. And good news is that we just recently passed through a total lunar eclipse on March 3rd. And this particular lunar eclipse, in my opinion, I guess I should say, because I think maybe astrologers such as you might have a different take on this, but to me, this is the final lunar eclipse of what I'm calling the current lunar cycle that we're wrapping up. And therefore, when we are in this final red box pushing into this green box, is when Bitcoin starts its recovery process. It doesn't necessarily mean that we can't have like maybe a double bottom, but at least the local bottom is pretty much in. And one other thing to mention for anyone who's in altcoins is this doesn't mean get excited about altcoins bottoming because altcoins can actually continue to go lower for quite some time. But it's really good news for the Bitcoin conversation because obviously I look at Bitcoin as the Jupiter of this market. Like it's like the king of the gods. It's like the
Mhm.
power plant. Some people might call it the sun, but I call it the Jupiter because I look at it through the lens of mythology, where Saturn creates Jupiter. So Saturn is Satoshi, right? And we could go deeper into that a little bit later, but this is usually where I start off when I'm like introducing my work to people.
Yeah, this is excellent. So I actually did a three-part YouTube series on total lunar eclipse cycles, and I found basically the same thing that you found is that they're the bottom always 100% of the time thus far. And Bitcoin's a young asset, right? So I mean, it's possible that patterns do shift over time, but up until this point, we have a 100% degree accuracy with bottoms aligning with the final total lunar eclipse in any given cycle.
Yeah.
And that came in really within, I mean, I even got into it granular with some granularity and looked at it on the daily chart and found that it usually comes, the bottom comes oftentimes even just before that final eclipse by a matter of days to 2 weeks. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, I have it written here because
There you go.
it's really
Oh, yeah, you
helpful.
got that. Yep.
Yeah, it is really helpful for everyone to understand the relationship between like that particular eclipse is not like the exact day. Although,
Yep.
one thing that's really amazing is in our last lunar cycle, we literally bottomed on the day. So that was
Yep.
epic.
Yeah, yeah, it creates a time band. So, in my work, since I know you're new or newer to my work too, so can help the viewers as well. I combine financial astrology cycles and I use actually both geocentric and heliocentric cycles. And then I combine that also with traditional Hearst cycles. And so it's interesting to layer all that together because it really allows you to get, like you're talking about, what I call a time band, right? Where we have a very high probability chance that a low is in.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, my I have an analog. I build analogs or fractals based on prior cycles. And
Hmm.
I find that the 8-year Venus cycle is very, very important to Bitcoin. And it really moves with a high degree of accuracy to that correlative cycle. And so my cycle suggests that, like you mentioned, a double bottom might be in store later this year, or at the very
Yeah.
least, a higher low. Um,
Yeah. And it has to do with Venus as well. I think it might happen during that like combo between Venus and Mercury retrograde happening later in the year. And it's in that time of the year in October, where the elite just like kind of love to crash markets. So
yeah, absolutely. Have you ever read Bradley Cowan's work?
no, no, I've never
Oh,
heard of them.
oh my gosh, I'll send you some links later. He created what was called the grand pentagram, and then applied that to market cycles, and it correlates to that time of season also, to the Scorpio Taurus axis,
Hmm.
as well as, yeah, we have this double Mercury and Venus retrograde in Scorpio,
Yeah.
both of them retrograde in Scorpio, and both of those are generally unfavorable for markets for sure.
Yeah. Yep, yep. Exactly. Yeah, there's this chart that I've been using. for the past 5 years as well, and it's mostly focused on Mercury retrograde because my work, I'm not trying to get so deep into the astrology stuff, for the sake of it's already complicated, right? Like this is already difficult for people. So
Yeah.
the long story short here is, I was teaching my community this past weekend that we have a blue moon coming up.
Yep.
And with that blue moon, the last time that we had one was over here, which funny enough, it was during that combo between Venus and Mercury retrograde at the same time, plus a
Mm,
blue moon. And
yep.
this was the second most oversold daily RSI that we've had for Bitcoin pretty much in its history,
Wow. Okay.
up until recently with the February crash. And it's super funny that we crashed so hard into February and it was perfectly into eclipse season, right? And
Yep.
the speed of that crash is what's making me feel like, yeah, we've probably bottomed. And if anything, maybe the double bottom is possible. But just to stay on track here, the this Venus Mercury retrograde combo later in the year might be something worth paying attention to, and it could help us with timing that quote unquote double bottom.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. It looks like our work is very in alignment.
Good.
That's
Yeah, and
awesome.
I really am interested in this particular moment between now and August, the upcoming eclipse season, right?
Mhm.
Because that
Yep.
upcoming eclipse season will align with it'll be leading into like this time of year where Bitcoin did something similar in 2019. I won't talk, I'll just show. So we have over here this J curve recovery, right? And that was
Mhm.
pretty brutal. What I love about it is the similarities between where we're at now and where we were back then are there
Mhm.
with regards to how many eclipses we had in this lunar cycle. So we had
Yep.
three total lunar eclipses. We could call it a short lunar cycle.
Yep.
And the speed of the crash obviously is perfect. It goes straight into the final lunar eclipse of the lunar cycle, and then we immediately start recovering from there. By the way, we're looking at the weekly chart, and
Mhm.
so far Bitcoin is like looking good. I've been telling my community like I don't want Bitcoin to do this because as a technical analyst, like you don't want to see straight line breakouts. If we were to see such breakout, then I would absolutely expect a double bottom, for sure. If we actually just have this arduous push up and then get rejected, maybe come down to 70, go up
Mhm.
again to 85, maybe get rejected back to 75, that would be the best case scenario. Just like a really boring, weird, choppy thing like that. You feel me? That'd be
I
the
do.
best.
Yep.
This is not good. Um,
Yeah. I agree with you.
Effectively, there's similarities though with the amount of lunar eclipses that we had, and that's the only cycle that I've counted so far that mimics this when at least we have altcoins, right?
Yeah.
So there's other parts to the conversation as well. And the last thing to say is there's an exoteric element of the Clarity Act. So like all eyes are on the new Fed chair, on what's going to happen with the Clarity Act. I was telling my community before we had the Clarity Act key markup, like expect to sell the news. So that's how it played out. It's looking good so far. And it'll be fascinating to see how what Bitcoin does between now and July.
Yeah, that will be fascinating. I know. And, one of the things that I've done is I've taken a look at the Genius Act and the Clarity Act, and I've put them on top of the United States Sibley chart. And from an astrological standpoint, here I can share real quick
Yeah.
because there's definitely some strong correlations here. So these are astrology charts for any viewers who aren't familiar. These are geocentric astrology charts. So um, here's the Genius Act. So the Genius Act was passed last year on July 18th of 2025. And what's really fascinating is if you take a look at the Genius Act on top of, let's see, the United States Sibley chart here, we were pretty much with just a couple 3 degrees over a Jupiter return for the United States. The sun was just 13 degrees away from the United States sun, and we had Uranus freshly for making its first ingress into the sign of Gemini last year, and then it kind of went back out, and now it's moved back in. But the United States had Uranus at 8 degrees of Gemini natally. And so when we get our return there to 8 degrees of Gemini, which actually takes place in 2028, this is the United Uranus return
Hmm.
in 2028. I anticipate that we're going to really see this, the Genius Act and the Clarity Act come together to unfold some massive transformation, right? Because they work together to create basically an entirely new set of rails for money to move on. It's an infrastructure, a financial infrastructure reset is kind of how I'm viewing it.
Yeah.
Is that your take on this?
Yeah, like I look at everything as if like we're moving into the Aquarian economy.
Mm,
And that's why we're going through this. And one thing to say is, I don't think we're in a quote unquote new age until we've seen the symbols of the old world go away. That's kind of part of the ritual, if you will. And we still have cash, we still have
yeah,
ATMs, we still have physical banks. So I think whatever's happening here is just part of the grand ritual to move into what we could consider the Aquarian economy. And there'll be other layers to this, obviously. There'll be no customs officers working at borders anymore. It'll just be some sort of facial recognition technology, iris scan sort of deal. So it's not just one layer, it's many, many other things
yeah,
that come into the big picture. So yeah, in order to move into that world, they need to track and trace all your money. So all the
yeah.
people that are like excited that Trump or whomever is in power right now is against CBDCs, I think
Right.
it's pretty naive. I think it's all
Yeah,
more alike than it is different.
I totally agree with you. That's kind of my thesis on stablecoins is that it's like the Trojan horse, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
part of this whole thing where they make it like people will want to trade their money in for stable coins, right?
Yeah.
I know they've got all this negotiation going on over the rewards and whatnot, but I anticipate they're going to make it
Yeah.
lucrative.
Staking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You know, so people will want to make that transition over, and probably even people who are, maybe outwardly against the concept of a CBDC, um, but but simultaneously then just playing into it.
Yeah. I look at everything kind of like it's all part of like even the terminology central bank digital currency makes people feel smart as it's coming out of their mouths.
Yeah,
And if you look at reality as like it's all about like a big spider web and we're caught in one part of it, there's something to that because eventually like you just need to look at how everyone agrees to an idea. It might be because it's funny. It might be because it's cultural, like a cultural moment, like a meme. Like there is literal mimetic warfare going on right in front of our eyes. So there's all of these elements, and I look into that with the psychology of it all. Because as an investor, I think the most important piece is the psychology. It's not just like how good you are at reading charts or how talented you are at memorizing patterns. Like there's an element to you're a part of this whole, this holistic organism, if you will. And it lives and breathes on debt and it needs the life support of money being injected into it at all times. And it's so levered up. The only way to really move into a quote unquote normalcy or like a new thing is to make something implode, like to like crash it all. So I think right now they're sort of using people who are sophisticated to throw out these big terms like CBDC and all of that. And then anti-CBDC Act comes around, like maybe 3 years after that word has kind of like entered our consciousness, and people are believing that they're not going to have something that is effectively mimicking what the CBDC is or the idea of it, right? Something that could potentially be tied to a universal basic income or like a
yeah,
social score. I hope I'm not making this sound overly complicated, but I do
no,
think there is a kind of like a societal gut punch when you hear CBDC. And it was done on purpose to give us that term years in advance. Kind of like there's another situation here that I'm trying to fish back into the past and remember. Because I was just talking about it in my last video with the Y2K situation and how AI is kind of feeling somewhat similar to that. And crypto
I
is also scary to people, right? Too. It's like the same, like I don't know what it is, it's a scam. Like they're gonna have to incentivize us somehow, right?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I loved your Y2K analysis in your last video where you talked about, that the .com crash was correlated to that. It was also 2000 was also Jubilee, right? So that was another correlation, I think.
Yeah, it was Catholic Jubilee. So
Catholic.
yes, it is. There's a 25-year Jubilee cycle in
Yeah.
Catholicism, but
Yeah.
in Judaism, it's a 50-year cycle.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think I talked about that on my last video about Jubilee. I put most of the emphasis on the Shmita year.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, but it's so interesting to see how all that correlates and to even unpack like how Catholicism took the Jubilee cycle and then split it in half, right? And yeah, I mean, we could jump into that a little bit and talk about the Shemitah cycle for a second, because that's something that I've done quite a bit of research on. Also, I did my
Oh,
research
nice.
on the Dow Jones, um,
Awesome.
just because it has the most amount of history. Um,
Correct. Or the
yeah,
S&P too, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I went all the way back to 1900 here, and these are you can see we've got the Shemitah years here, and then I marked a midpoint. And what I did was
Hmm.
I actually divided the Shemitah cycle into harmonic divisions. So you've got 1/8, a quarter, a third, 50%, 66%, and 75% travel. And what I noticed is that there's a high to high cycle that is really, really consistent. And so this had to do with my forecasting last year, actually. So this is historical, but um,
Hmm.
that crash that happened last year, not only was it aligned with the COVID cycle as well from an
Hmm.
astrological standpoint, but we were in orb for this 42-month cycle inside the Shemitah cycle, where we see consistently um, volatility and drawdowns in the 50% through the travel, uh, which is very, very reliable. So that was one of the fascinating things that I observed. And then you can actually just look at the different harmonic divisions of the Shemitah cycle and look for patterns and tone of behavior. And actually, we're in the year after the 50% travel. So we're headed towards 66%. And that does tend to still see some volatility. We will tend to get up moves, but then we oftentimes come back down for a period of a couple months during those periods.
Yeah. That wouldn't be shocking if that aligns with the eclipse season in February 2027. In
Yeah.
my opinion, like if I had to time that, I'm not sure where yours aligns with, but
Well, for let's see, eclipse season in 2027, I've got only the 27
I was
eclipse.
in regards to your harmonic divisions that you were talking about.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's see. So we hit 66%. Uh, like if you look at the Shemitah cycle as the whole 7-year cycle, right?
Hmm.
We hit the 66% travel this right now in May
Yep.
of 2026. We'll hit the 75% in December of 2026, and then we get the 87.5% in November of 2027. So we're kind of still inside this, like the year after the 50% travel kind of volatility. And we did get our move up, right?
Hmm.
And then we got our drawdown. So we'll see if we get some ongoing volatility. In my 8-year Venus cycle work, which I also track on the Dow, I use it on a lot of different assets. One of the things that I found is that, if we look back 8 years, you're not going to necessarily get the exact same pattern repetition, but you do get a variation. It's either direct or inverted. And if you look at 2018, this was the price behavior in 2018, right? That was not a straight line. And
Hmm.
so that's really what I'm expecting to see this year out of the markets. And if you think about it, it actually aligns with our eclipse season as well. Um,
Hmm.
that's taking place. And then because we've got that total solar eclipse in August of this year, followed by then the double retrograde, the Mercury and Venus retrograde,
Yeah.
which also comes, just is it during midterms? Is that retrograde period or right after? I'd have to check
I'm
the,
not sure. Yeah, I'm not
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's so great to talk with somebody who's like on it, man. This is
It,
great.
yeah,
This is great.
it is very good. So I noticed in your last video too that you were talking about XRP, and
Hmm.
I'm super curious what your take on that is with XRP's involvement. Do you see that being involved in the stablecoin unrollment, or do you see it separately?
Your specific question regarding stablecoins?
Well, yeah. Do you see that XRP maybe has a bigger part to play?
Yeah, okay. Like simply
Yeah,
put, I think
yeah,
with my work, particularly, I always bring things back to mythology. because that's like my personal specialty. I think everything in this reality is tied back to a mythological archetype in a way. And obviously, all the movies we see, all of Hollywood, entertainment, it's all coming back to these themes of these archetypes. And I believe XRP is the Mercury of this market. It's the quote unquote fast mover, it's tied to cross-border payments, which has to deal with messaging and communication. It's allegedly supposed to replace the SWIFT system, which is a communication layer. And, you could keep going on and on and on, but to me, it has a lot to do with it. Also, the symbolism of the caduceus with the snakes creating the X, and all of that. There's so much symbolism going on there with XRP. But Ripple is also tied back to water symbolism, right? Like this idea of um the ripple in the water, and they're pretty clear with it with their logo as well, right? Like they're pretty clear with it. Then you have the Triskelion symbology, the Trinity symbolism. So there's a lot going on there where I find it fascinating and on the nose almost, like as if these are occultists, which I believe a lot of the top players are. I believe they're all in the occult, all Masons. So they're aware, they're not dumb. None of this is by accident. And symbolism is their downfall. So as I'm aware of symbolism and the tie back to Mercury, Mercury isn't gold, Mercury isn't silver. Um, it's very special in the way of, particularly this conversation with astrology, right? And its connection to money with the ties to merchandise and commerce. It's where we get that word from, right? With the etymology. But we're moving into a new way to do commerce. We're moving into a new way to do this whole thing called money. And I know enough about RLUSD, the like stable coin tied to Ripple, and enough about these like escrow unlocks that Ripple has to be a lot more conservative about my outlook on XRP regarding price appreciation. And I only lay that foundation because when you come across XRP content on the internet, it's always like very much from, first of all, it's from like the XRP cult like directly. So you're basically just getting people that really want it to go up in price to these unbelievable price targets just to make themselves feel better. And I think that's obviously a problem. So I have had my own take on upside price targets, and I am a big investor in XRP, but it comes back to answering your question of like I do see it fitting into the conversation, but I do not believe that it's going to be the thing that most people think it will be. And
Yeah.
I need to like lay out that foundation because of the extreme polarization of XRP content, where it's either to the average YouTuber, it's a shit coin, or it's the thing that's going to change the whole financial system, right? There's no in between. And since I started my channel, I wanted to try to like give a level-headed approach at this, look at it through symbolism, through the esoterica, and not get so excited. So, funny enough, XRP is probably the project that I've had the most successful trades with because it tends to have a very predictable breakout timing. It tends to
Mhm.
break out in like a 28-day time frame, and then it just draws down. And it has these like we call them like distribute Bart Simpson heads, but like they're
Uh-huh.
distribution tops,
Yep.
but it has these very predictable moves, actually. Unfortunately, it's hard to predict when that move will occur. It's just when it does make that move, you know what comes next. It's like a plane. A plane can sit in on the tarmac forever, but once it goes up, it needs to go down. It will go right back down to where it started. And it's not like Bitcoin, which is just this forever up, forever like tied to this very specific lunar solar cycle thing. It's not. It's not behaved like Bitcoin. So what we were doing before with our eclipses, you can't do that shit with XRP. It just doesn't work. So you need to attack it from a different angle. And this is what I love about the element of mythology in the conversation. Is because you start treating things like they are different, even though they're all born of the same kind of origin. And they're all going to supplement each other at the end of the day, just like planets do in the grand
Yeah.
scheme of things. So I don't think XRP is going anywhere because I'm sitting here and calling it like Mercury. It's not like some unknown celestial luminary that you've never heard of. It is a very important piece to the puzzle, but Last thing to say is my truth is Mercury is for the people. It's not for like the gods, really. Like Mercury is like for the people. It rules below the dome in my truth. So it deals with us. And that means we have to get our relationship straight with Mercury. Like once you can master Mercury, like you're ready to move on to higher dimensions, if you will, you know? So hope I answered your question. I don't think it's going
Yeah.
anywhere, but I don't think it's going to be like something gr so much bigger than it kind of already has been.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just curious because I noted that you talked about it and that you were positioning in it. It sounded like you were positioning in it or that you had been positioning in it. And I had some great trades on XRP. I held it for a long time and got rid of it near the top long while back. So I'm certainly not a member of the XRP army. But I do remember when it launched and that what you speak of about that really stark distinction of people oftentimes people either being like all for it or all against it, and
Yeah,
it's had that energy from its inception you know
100%.
yeah. So um you also talked about the occult symbolism and just the powers that be using it, and one of the of course I align with that, but one of the most recent events that stood out to me that I thought of um is the SpaceX IPO. And, in my Discord, we've had a bit of a conversation going around when we thought the IPO was going to come out. And I was targeting between July or June 12th and July 5th ish. And then it came out that they announced they were targeting June 12th, which is
Hmm.
that's Uranus square the nodes. Are you do you look at astrology charts on a regular basis?
No,
Or
they're definitely not the main theme in my work, like
okay.
for sure. And
Yeah.
the big reason is because like I'm fascinated in mythology for sure, but I'm also fascinated a lot in sidereal astrology and that kind of angle. And obviously that's similar to XRP, where it's like either you're all for it or all against it, and I'm very neutral. And it's made me kind of settle in this lane of mythology specialist and symbolism specialist. And that's what I love Gematria for. Because Gematria numerology, the stuff with etymology, symbolism, and all of that, it allows me to like almost not get too in the weeds of the astrology charts. But I
Mhm.
love learning about it because every time I learn more about it, I see like what I'm feeling. It's like
Yeah.
Sanskrit versus like regular Latin letters. Like
Yeah.
I just have my own thing that I could understand, and I haven't done enough time of diving deep into the astrology charts, mostly because there's too much going on, you know? Like it's a lot to digest and there's a lot of bullshit out there, you know? So
Yeah.
it's very rare do you find somebody who really knows their stuff that you can be like, okay, I think it's similar to my work too, where people come across gematria for the first time and they're like, "Oh, you're just connecting random shit together." And I'm like, you have to explain that to them. And it's like, it's no, I'm sorry, it's not random.
Yeah.
So yeah, my relationship with it is very much that like I'm uh I'm learning a lot about it, but I still don't apply it personally in my work.
Yeah, your work with symbolism is incredible. I remember when I watched one of your first videos for the first time, and I think it must have been around the time you launched your channel because it was back in 2021. And I remember somebody sent one to me, and I was very impressed. I was like, that is really brilliant because the focal point of my work, I really process like numbers and data a lot.
Yeah.
And so the astrology chart and the technical analysis chart are really they're my language.
Yeah.
Um, but of course I love the symbolism and the mythology as well. But also I would say something that for me I do encounter a lot in the astrology world is, like you said you're into sidereal astrology, and that a lot of times that can be a pinch point for people get really hung up on which
Yeah.
system one system being right. uh
Yeah.
and it's like they're just different languages, like you said. And
Yeah.
I personally love all of them. I find and I apply them all to the financial markets directly. And not just like I think that there's two different kinds of astrology. There's interpretive and then there's technical in financial astrology
Yeah.
specifically. There's interpretive and then there's technical. And you know in technical financial astrology, it never fails to just kind of give me that esoteric feeling of like goosebumps when I take a cycle. I can look at a natal chart and I can, find like a conjunction on a natal chart of two planets, let's say from the heliocentric perspective. And then I take that and I use my tools and I run that cycle on the chart. And lo and behold, you get a weekly pivot every time you put that cycle on the chart. It's that the markets are responding to the cycles. And we could talk about whether it's energetic or whether it's mathematical,
Yeah.
frequency based, energetic based, but it works.
Yeah.
you
And
know?
that's all that matters. Like if you find
Yeah.
a recipe that works, like, but it's still a recipe. Like try telling somebody to bake at 350 degrees in Denver for
Yeah.
the same amount of time as somebody who's in like Death Valley.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like you just have to like come to terms with there's something here that's controlling the experiment that is beyond your personal, control. Um,
Definitely.
it's learning what variables to adjust and how you could adjust them, but also you need to understand them. And that's probably my biggest thing when it comes to talking with people who are into astrology or any of these more esoteric arts is like very rarely do they actually understand the system of where this stuff all comes from. Like where, and that's what I've loved about the mythology stuff.
Yeah, that is very true. I recently read a book that was just had brilliant historical astrological history in it. It was actually because I've been really into studying the Arabic lots. It was by Robert Zoller. I have it right here next to my desk. It's called the Arabic Parts of Astrology. Brilliant. Like as far as like that book, the part that impressed me was the historical part. Well, and that because that's really understanding the roots of a system and where it comes from informs our capacity to interpret it and use it going forward.
100%. Yeah, it's like the difference between learning a recipe and learning how to cook.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
for sure.
you could follow a recipe and you don't know what the fuck you're doing, but if you learn how to cook, then you can make your own recipe. Like you can just freestyle. You could take any ingredients and come up with something.
Yeah.
So it's depending on like where you're at in the process. And that's I think a big piece to my work is when I found this whole crypto or TA thing, and also when I stumbled upon a lot of this more esoteric stuff in a way that like you can show it, not just talk about it, but actually show it as if you're looking at the astrology charts. It's not just like vocal, you going back and forth with somebody. You're actually putting it onto this paper and
Yeah.
showcasing these connections, right? So like when I started getting more into that, um, yeah, I think like the point that I'm getting to is like this world of all of this knowledge and all of this information. I wanted to provide something unique. I wanted to
Mhm.
provide something that was like, this is my flavor, like this is my uh like experimental. I always loved experimental music, and I wanted to make like this is like my prog rock band or something, like this is my Mars Volta. I wanted to just make something super fucking weird, and I knew a lot of people wouldn't like it, but ultimately at the end of the day, like there's somebody out there is gonna like it, and then the people who are resonating with it are gonna be my people, right? And that's the beauty. I only say this because I'm a business coach, so I help a lot of people taking these niche ideas or taking an idea and teaching them how to monetize that, right? Like how to monetize your passion. And
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about that earlier, but I only bring that up now because there's so many people who are like making crypto videos or astrology videos or any of this stuff. Sometimes people feel imposter syndrome. Sometimes people feel like they're they haven't found their voice yet, like they're just still kind of like nervous talking, whatever it might be. And I think that's where the beauty is just like going for it, risking, sharing something. Like yeah, you'll probably be wrong. You'll probably be inaccurate. You'll probably be, like not the most calculated and perfect, but just do it, man. And I wish more people like you, especially, were just going for it in this way. Like, I don't want to speak for myself, but like, I love seeing people do something unique with these markets. That's really what this is all about. That's why I wanted to do this podcast with you because I saw you were doing something unique.
Yeah, I super appreciate it. I'm really glad that you're here. I love that. Yeah, it's I took a turn with my YouTube channel because I kind of started it a couple years ago and was sharing my work, but then I took a turn this spring And I realized what I really was curious about, what I love is learning about what other people are doing that's unique in the markets too. And so this has been really fascinating because you've gotten to be the first person that I talk to that isn't somebody I already know or I'm familiar with, right? Like I've watched your work, but we've never had a conversation. So this has been really awesome to get to kind of see under the hood and talk to you and unpack how you do things because I find that fascinating.
It
Um,
means a lot to me. I appreciate you.
yeah, I also I love that you're building an in-person community. That really jumped out at me when I watched your last video. And I wonder
Yeah.
if you want to share a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, let me see if I could pull up my I don't know if it'll show up for you.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, so like this is an idea that actually started probably like a couple of years ago, but we started putting it into practice last year. I called it Waters Above University, and it's transformed into what is now a platform. So I took a big risk over the last 10 months and I invested in hiring full stack developers to make a web platform. And everything that you're about to see was made by humans. It wasn't vibe coded. It took a lot of work, a lot of effort, and I'm very proud of it. Um, Effectively, it was all to leverage on the convenience of online initially, like to initially digitally connect, but then with the main vision of connecting in person. Um, so part of this thing that I call Portal, which is like our conscious social network, ties in everything through the social feed all the way through to what we were talking about before we started the call, which is member map. And this technology is really amazing because it is a member directory. We're just getting started, by the way. I just opened this up to the public like a week and a half ago. So we're just getting started, but the idea here was to have a global map where we can see where all of our community is. And it wouldn't be all about just people. We wanted to take it a little deeper and have it be about interests. Like, what are you into? And then groups. So we could have a world in which I'll show you. We have groups, and for right now, it's just the members' locations. But there's going to be a world where it's like, where are you said you're from Oregon? I could quickly go to Oregon and I could show you. So we have a couple people in Oregon already. Um, there's actually a lot of people in Oregon that follow my channel, but as I said, we just launched this recently. So we have a couple people in Oregon, and let's just say one of them wanted to create like a craft beer crawl group, right? So that's all they wanted to focus on. We have a forum inside of here that'd be dedicated to the Oregon craft beer, Portland craft beer group, and they can meet there and they can organize events. So everything will be interwoven from events to the groups that are created to the location of where they are on the member map to the interest of the group, and it'll all be interconnected. It's really amazing. So, and then you get this beautiful interface where all of it is happening. So it's not like just a Facebook group. No offense to those people using Facebook groups. That's a really convenient thing to have, but I wanted to make something better. So yeah, that's like a good little intro to the idea. And it's also to connect with me every week. I do like a weekly group coaching call, and I work with people a lot on like the idea of expanding their consciousness. What helped me get to this place with creating Waters Above, which is not just getting into TA and the charts. It's actually a pretty deep process of going through, my own trials and tribulations and uh but without getting too personal, I think the coolest thing to show you is Oasis. This project was my way of like thinking of how can I connect people to talk with microphone or their webcam without always needing a text, right? So the idea of this space, oh, I have a Portland space in here actually.
Oh, oh, cool.
So it's this is a place that means a lot to me. It's actually an homage between a place that I've went to in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Um
Yep.
the story is here, but it's about Nara Park in Japan, which is like a deer park. It's amazing. But also obviously there's a deer symbolism with Portland, Oregon.
Mhm.
And I have the cherry blossoms, Mount Hood and it's not perfectly 100% supposed to be Portland. It's supposed to be taking all of these elements of things that meant a lot to me and like combining it all into one space. And there's a very vulnerable story that's attached onto it, as well as um, kind of like the meaning and the purpose. But also, it looks beautiful, right? So the idea here would be you can go in one of these spaces and you could put hanging out with Margo. I think it's how. And then I will block that. I will just join. And then in this space, if other people were here with me, we would also be able to turn on our webcam or our microphone and we'd be able to interact with each other without needing to text anymore. And what's amazing about this is there's no Zoom links needed. There's no
Wow.
links at all. So, for example, I told you this was all integrated. I'm going to go back to Portal, and inside of Portal, I could make a post where I'll say showing Margo, and then I'll press here, and then we'll go back to the park. And then I'll post that, and then I'll have a button here, and then I could just immediately go there.
Wow,
And
that's incredible.
then we're back. So this is like my baby. I made this whole space actually um based off of a sagittal section of the human brain. So the whole park design, like the whole idea of the design is the brain, like as if you're inside of the mind, right? And
Okay.
each of these
Yep.
spaces is dedicated to like a path towards higher consciousness. So if you want to talk with people about creative expression, we have a space about your epiphanies, about just being present, being in the now, consciousness expansion. So all these places are all very much uh very important to me. And I'm a big fan of storytelling. I think storytelling and being open about your past is a big um, theme in relatability. It could help you, like, for people to understand you and people to resonate with you, you know? This is the sauna that we created, really beautiful on a lake. And by the way, this is just the start of the project. I plan to make it more 3D. So we're going to go ahead and make it even more like interactive, more immersive. But this is just kind of the start. The technology was the hardest thing to build. It's what took the longest.
Yeah,
And
this is beautiful. What a unique idea.
I just want
I
to show you like how epic it
yeah,
is. Like it, even an outdoor area that we've designed. So
this is
you
so
can,
unique. I've never seen anything like this. This, I mean, great
yeah,
work. What and I love that it's built on building connections based on consciousness because I think at the end of the day, one of the things that really, when I got into trading, I realized that it's not something that you can succeed at you with like without being aware of yourself and without deepening your connection with yourself, right? It ended
right.
up becoming one of the things that takes me to another layer, right? Each like an onion, each thing unpacks a different layer of your consciousness. So I love
Right.
that you're kind of weaving that together with the connection point so people can grow in their conscious connections as well.
Yeah, like it was the idea of like how to be more organized, how to be more focused, how to be more dedicated to making a change too. Like there's a lot of people right now that are worried about AI, they're worried about like their jobs, they're worried about all the disruption and obviously like the way the world's heading. So that was like a big motivator, of course, but then there's the motivator of like a lot of people feel lonely. A lot of people are like, I'm
Yep.
awake. And I just like, for example, there's a lot of single people in my community that are awake and they're like, I just want to find somebody that I could get to know and that see where that leads to, right? But it's nearly impossible, just in the chaos and randomness of life. So it's not impossible, but you know what I mean. The point is that
Yep.
we're definitely using our devices more. So we can't just say like get off your device and go to the bar and then hope for the best. Like it's not, it just doesn't work that way, man. So obviously there's a lot we can do to get out of our houses and put in the work, but yeah, it's just really, I guess I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have grown such a large platform. I didn't expect my channel to do so well. I didn't expect it to resonate with so many people. And now that I'm here at the 5 year mark, I'm like, well, what can I invest all of my resources into to creating that could possibly bring more people together? And if I will do it, it's not just going to be a social media app. Like, fuck that. Like, it's going to be something that's about helping people with my, services and whatever I could possibly help them with whether that be conscious investing or that be expanding consciousness through mindset coaching and all the other things that I cover, but also bringing people together into a space that doesn't have any paid ads. There's no addictive algorithm. There's no data selling, like all of that toxic stuff that we deal with when we're on these traditional platforms. So, it was like made by conscious people for conscious people. That's another piece to it of all the things that we made this with was like heart and soul. And it's not just this place that's trying to steal all your data and sell it to then send you an ad on a Google email, like, so we're not doing any of that nonsense either.
Well,
But
that's the gem of what you're doing, and that's what I think that must be what drew us together is just that that genuine integrity and commitment to sharing what you have to share with the world and connecting with people through authenticity. It's,
Yeah, 100%. Like I think like I wanted to inspire more people I know and like I don't want to sound like I don't want this to sound egoic, but I've had many clients that have like a lot of money, like tens of million, $20 million like net worth and higher, and they're not doing anything with their money. Like they're just putting it into a bunch of liabilities. They're
yeah.
putting it into like even they're over investing, honestly. And I know some people might disagree with that and think like, oh, if you have all this money, you should just invest it into the market. And I actually completely disagree with that. If you don't have other things that you're investing in that are based on like your vision, and if your vision doesn't center around people and community, then like I don't know what the fuck we're living for. You
Yeah.
know? Even
Yeah.
if all that community or your people means to you is your family, that's all. If that's more than enough. But like we clearly live in a world where like we're probably 10 steps away from like AI girlfriend, you know? Like humanoid robot wife.
Yeah.
And I don't think I know it sounds judgmental, but I believe probably 99% of your audience sees what gets my point. It's like, is that what we want? Like, is that actually what we want? I don't think so. Um, but without getting too dark, yeah, this is the platform. We have also this new thing that I came out with that pushed the project another month because I that's another thing that's took a lot longer because I'm a perfectionist and I wanted to just make it better and better and better. And this focus mode was the start of all the productivity stuff that we're going to build in the future, such as like a focus timer, so that if people have some dedicated work that they want to get done, but they want to have some sort of timer to keep them on track, that'll be built in too. And as you can see, I needed to keep the planets nearby, so every day of the week is associated with the planets. And I think you'll like this. Let me show you. This is our daily check-in. And
Oh,
as you can see, it's also based on the day of the week. And it's every day will be something different. So with obviously Venus, you have relationships, and I wanted that to be a theme, but also from my personal take, this wasn't using AI. I wrote all of these myself. And also there's a connection with money, right? With Venus. So, yep, this is I just showed you maybe 10% of the platform. There's so much to show, but I hope you know, I hope you understand more what we're up to over here.
yeah, that is very exciting. I love it. I'm very excited. I want to check it out myself. It looks like a great place to connect with people, and I think that is really crucial. It's interesting because when I think about connecting with people, like when we live in our communities, it's important to connect with the people here in our communities. Although when we have niche interests like you or I do, it's hard to maybe connect with people in the real world around, like in our community. I live about an hour and a half outside the city in a small community. I'm actually a project that I haven't launched like publicly at all yet, but that I've been working on for several years now is that we steward about 150 acres here, and we just got our nonprofit status. And I'm co-founding, if you will, a community here, and so we're building food forests and gardens and
That's so
preparing,
dope.
preparing for to be sustainable regardless of what the world looks like as we move forward. But I think these online communities are really important. Like it's just a whole nother layer because I have connected with so many amazing people just through Twitter, actually, or X.
Sure.
It's X,
Yep.
right? Um,
No, it's definitely Twitter still for me.
yeah, I never stopped calling it Twitter.
Yeah.
Um, but but I've connected with so many amazing people through there. And then, just through sharing my work, right? Because then in sharing your work, and when you're sharing from a genuine place, then people are genuinely interested and you build connections with people. And I just think that that's one of the great gems of all of this. So I love what you're doing. And I'm excited to check
That
it out.
means a lot. That means so much to me. Yeah, like I keep calling it a risk just because of like it was a big build out and like it again wasn't vibe coded, so it's not just like AI and a lot of the world is thinking you can just vibe code something like this, but it's not true at all. It's actually very, very difficult to do this. And one of the things that I love about it is it makes me now respect the digital world a lot more, like how much that actually goes into it. So now I look at coders and devs like Michelin star chefs, like they're incredible at their work. And a lot of them not all of them, but like at least the guy that's been partnered with us for a lot of the project puts a lot of attention to detail in it and treats it like it's his own. And it just means the world to me to not only create something, but to also create job opportunities for people, And that's another side of this that I didn't have before going through this project. So being able to employ people and make them part of this vision, and then now finally, as of like last week, a week and a half ago, open up the doors to people. And yeah, the hardest part about this is not everyone wants to pay for stuff anymore. That's really like
Yeah.
what's unfortunate. Like nobody even wants to pay to go to a concert, but everyone thinks their money is like not being drained away in all these other liabilities. Like they
Yeah.
pay even now $20 a month to have ChatGPT.
Right.
And I think that's super funny that people are like willing to pay somebody $20 for ChatGPT, the technocrats,
Right.
but they feel weird about like supporting someone like you for $20 a month to, do this amazing work that you do. So that's probably the most difficult thing right now for people who are conscious around the world to break that spell and to
Yeah.
actually see that like once you break that mindset, it makes abundance so much easier for you as well as the individual. So I'm also trying to teach people that, like get into this framework where you are investing consciously into things that you support, that you believe in, and that will bring back a lot more to you than fucking Netflix,
Yeah. I
Nothing wrong with Netflix,
absolutely
but
agree.
like, let's
Well,
be real here.
yeah, and do what makes you genuinely happy, right? And be willing to put your energy and your resources into that, right? And and then it multiplies. That's the reality of it. If you It depends on where you're operating from. I mean, this is kind of a whole another layer of a conversation, right?
Hmm.
Because you get into lack consciousness, and
Right.
it has multiple different layers that energetically, astrologically, you name it, also real life lived traumas and experiences that people grow up with. But at the end of the day, it's the full spectrum, right? So you've got you've got the lack consciousness on one end, and then you've got greed on the other. And for me, a lot of what I've been doing also when I work with people, because I also work with people one-on-one and they're in personalized astrology readings. And so we're working to um, find a balance, find a healthy middle line to come into relationship with your strengths and your weaknesses that are inherent in you, right? And then to
Right.
marry all those together and to come out into the world and be able to generate and create wealth for yourself. Because it's not easy for everyone. It's easier for some people than it is for others, but it's possible if people come to it from a genuine place and are willing to do the work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I have like so much experience now working with clients though, where I've looked at their personal finances and I see people that say like I have no money and then I
Yeah.
watch the leak. It's because of all the dollars being digital. Like when you used to
Mm.
hold physical cash in your hand, like you used to watch it physically go away.
Hmm.
And I almost like think that would be better for 90% of people, you know?
Yep.
this is
Yeah.
not something that's helpful for it's kind of like chips at the gambling casino, like because it's chips and it's not dollars, you don't even relate to it like it's money.
Well, and not
That's all
not
part of the, you know.
yeah, not everybody also has an innate skill set to manage their money. I would actually say, because I, as a person who, I also am an accountant too. I've done a lot of things in my life.
Yeah.
I
You're like,
know never,
and I'm also a
seriously, believe it or not,
Olympic skier.
it's hard to believe. I have Gemini on my midheaven. If that, with Jupiter, and Jupiter conjunct my midheaven in Gemini.
Yeah.
So
Whenever anyone asks me what I do for work, I tell them that I'm a landscape architect.
I like it. Awesome.
I saw it in a movie and I have it was the hardest I ever laughed.
Oh my
Sorry, keep
gosh.
going.
No, it's true. It's so hard sometimes when people ask me what I do. I'm like,
Yeah.
I've come to answer. I work with people on their money. That's kind of what it's
Oh,
come to,
that's good.
you
Yeah,
know.
that's
Um,
nice.
yeah, and I actually some my I plan I hope to write a book, and I already have the title for it. I hope no one steals it if I share it right here.
Oh
I
man,
just I just
keep it on
I
the
won't say it.
DL.
Okay, I
Yeah.
won't
Keep
say
it
it.
on the DL. And you have to say I will write a book.
I will. I will. Oh, I
Yeah.
will. Yes. I
Yeah.
actually wrote my first forecast, a full year forecast this year, and put it out on Patreon. That was very exciting.
Oh,
Um,
nice. Like a
yeah.
yearly report.
Yeah, like a yearly forecast for 2026. Yep. That was
Nice.
my first book that I shared with the world. So it's
Yeah, that's
already in
dope.
progress, you know.
Yeah,
uh,
that's super cool.
yeah, but I don't remember where I was going in the end with that. But oh, I work with people and their money, and yeah, when you have I guess a diverse background in many different things, it gives you a lot of insight. Like, because having run successful businesses and then also helping other people run their success or run their, well, they're varying different levels of success in their businesses. You know, you can identify systems that need support. And yeah, I mean, I guess you do business coaching too. It sounds like
Yep.
so. You
Yeah.
know, you can relate that at the end of the day, we're looking for strengths and weaknesses, and I find that a lot of people managing money isn't their strength, and
Yep.
so it's important for them to either reach out to people to get support for that or to learn, right?
Yep.
And it's but I guess I remember you were talking, kind of ended up off the beaten path a
No,
little.
no, no. I mean, it's yeah, it's like it's good to be aware, and this is why like my thing that I've been telling people what we do on my platform. Sorry if you're hearing the noise coming through from outside, but I tell people what I do on my platform in this like Waters Above University project is teaching people conscious investing,
Yeah.
you know? Because like it's not just invest in things that are like some AI. Oh my God, sorry. This noise outside is really bad for me. It's like a fire car.
Oh
One
no.
second.
Yep.
Okay. Apologies. I'm like one
No,
of those
well,
people
the
that
good
if I
news is we didn't hear it.
Okay, good. Yeah, I have this thing on my computer. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Crisp. It's like a sound cancellation software. It's
No.
super helpful. I love it. It's it's really
I'll check
helpful. Anyways,
that. I haven't heard of it, but that sounds very useful.
yeah, no, it's very useful because my microphone's pretty good, but it picks up way too much noise. And then I put this Crisp thing on because somebody recommended it, and it now sounds like really nice quality when I'm doing podcasts and stuff. But anyways, what I was trying to say before that crazy noise outside was I focus on teaching people conscious investing, which is not just about investing in markets or trying to find like the next 10x, crypto altcoin or some cobalt mining stock bullshit. Like it's actually teaching people the idea of like maybe budgeting. Because maybe for that particular individual, what would make them a more conscious investor would not be teaching them how to balance their stock portfolio. They might be have a high acumen there, right? They
Yeah.
might be insanely talented at making money, but they suck at preserving it, you know?
Mhm.
And that's another piece to the puzzle. So it sounds vague, but in actuality, like it's just about dialing in and being really vulnerable, being very honest about where you're at in the process, and then going from there. And a lot of people that I meet, it's not about learning how to invest in crypto. That is not the problem. It's like all this other leak and all of this other stuff. And in your work, you could probably dial in a lot with the personality when you look at their astrology. and understand like why they're behaving that way.
Yeah.
In my work I could usually tell in the way that people talk about things or the way that they like carry themselves. My specialty is like just observing people and being like, "Oh, I can sense a lack of confidence. I can sense your language, like people's language is always a little bit like loose in some areas and then super dialed in others." And you just tailor it to where you're at. And yeah, that's what you have to become aware of. And way too many people are like, well, what's the best business to create? Or what's the best crypto to invest in? Or what's the best gold mining stock? It's like none of that shit really matters until you have all this other underlining stuff figured out, right? Like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter, for example, how great your lifting routine is at the gym if you're eating fucking McDonald's every meal,
Seriously.
for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah. No, it's true. Absolutely. It makes me think of have you ever read Ken Wilber before?
No, I haven't.
He just has a system called spiral dynamics, and it makes me think of that. And that a person can be advanced in a certain area and really not really far behind in another, right? I
Hmm.
mean, you could think of like the story of like Einstein couldn't tie his shoes, right? Uh,
Right, right.
and I think it's similar. Like a person maybe has developed a very successful business, or maybe they've made a lot of money, but maybe they're not good at preserving it. Maybe they're not doing what they love. Maybe fill in the blank, they're not happy for some reason. And so, yeah, they come to me to talk about how to make decisions that are going to put them more in alignment with their birth chart, because your birth chart it's a stamp that you're given at the time you're born with a set of energies that come in.
Yeah.
And you can't avoid those. You can't get away from them. You work with them. So, and that's the power, right? Is that it's a map that you got. And you get to learn how to synthesize and work with those things and come into better relationship with them. So that's one of the ways that I work with people. I also just work directly with businesses and people with their finances. So not as a financial consultant per se, but more in accounting and systems design. Uh,
Yeah, that's
but
awesome.
yeah, that's very cool. I love that we have some overlap in the work that we're doing.
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
Yeah. Cool. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity to get to know you and share your work with my community. Um, yeah. Do you want to tell everybody how to find you?
Sure, yeah. Best place to start would just be Waters Above on YouTube. Maybe check out a video, see if it is interesting. The next video I'll have out will probably be next Monday, or so, maybe next Monday or Tuesday. So, other than that, yeah, that's probably the best place to start. And my platform is watersabove.app. Check out that website and you can learn more about it over there.
Awesome. And to all my viewers, make sure to like and subscribe because that helps my algorithm. And you can find me at margoamala.com. You can join my Patreon or my Discord, and all the links will be in the video description below. Have a great week. Talk to you soon.